Part 86. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 851. Chapter 851. You give it to me to eat? Yuan Ran turned around to close the door, but her hand pressed on the door, preventing her from closing it. Why, you turned your back on me when you got out of bed. Yuan Ran felt relieved when she heard Bai Ye's voice, even though it was so rough and rude. Yuan Ran moved his hand from the door and let Bai Ye push the door open. However, Yuan Ran stood at the door and did not move, as if he didn't want to let him in. What are you here for? Come and see you. I don't know how to respond to your words. The two of them seemed to be standing at the door competing to see who was more patient. They both had very nice auras, but Yuan Ran's stomach was the first to surrender, growling. B smiled slowly, and Yuan Ran wanted to find a hole to crawl into. I'm going to rest, please get out of the way. Yuan Ran grabbed the door at that time, clearly instructing Kitano to step back and leave. But B was thick-skinned and acted as if he didn't know what she meant, and walked directly into Yuan Ran's cozy nest. Mr. Bai, if you break into a house without permission, I can call the police. You call the police. Kitano felt as comfortable as returning to his own home, sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed. He looked so cool. Yuan Ran really wants to kick this shameless person out? Look at your hands. If you have thin arms and legs, forget it. Yuan Ran exhaled, walked into the kitchen and started to feed himself. This was the fastest way. Yuan Ran cooked the noodles, and after adding seasonings, the aroma spread. She was very satisfied with her results, and ate them slowly after bringing them to the table. Even though she was hungry, she still looked elegant when eating. She probably would never see Yuan Ran devouring her food in her life. She was eating her own noodles there, as if she had forgotten that there was a living person named Bai Ye sitting at home. B didn't eat at night. He smelled the fragrance and was quite tempted. Bai Ye put down his crossed-legged posture and walked towards Yuan Ran with his long legs. Just one bowl. Yuan Ran looked up at him, not understanding what he meant. B suddenly lowered his head and moved his fingers to her face. Yuan Ran subconsciously shrank back, but B still put a hand on the corner of her mouth, as if wiping it, and then stood back. Yuan Ran became angry and said, "What are you doing?" Bai Ye was surprised to see her strong reaction. Yuan Ran's eyes wandered around, as if she realized that her words revealed too many emotions. She took a deep breath, lowered her head and continued to eat noodles. But the hands holding the chopsticks betrayed her nervousness. Bai Ye sat down at the dining table, like an old man going into a restaurant to eat. I'm hungry. Turn left downstairs and there is a noodle shop 100 meters away. I'll probably starve to death by the time I get out. Yuan Ran really didn't want to talk nonsense with him. Who could be better than Bai Ye? But Bai Ye is a person who will not give up until he reaches his goal. He insists on pestering Yuan Ran to feed him. If I starve to death, will you go to the noodle restaurant 100 meters downstairs to collect my body? Yuan Ran scolded him, you speak without restraint. B smiled instead of getting angry, you care about me. Mr. Bai, I don't need to make a deal now. Without a deal, there was no reason for her to cook for Bai Ye. Oh, how about I make a deal with you, you let me fill my belly and I contribute my body. Pa, Yuan Ran suddenly pressed his chopsticks heavily on the table and clenched his fists in front of Bai Ye. B, are you here just to humiliate me? Mr. Bai can't speak. Please understand. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 852. Chapter 852. Labor and capital only kiss the woman I love most. I have mentioned the transaction again and again. Do you think it is something worthy of showing off? Yes, you should show off. You won and trampled my Yuan Ran's pride under your feet, completely. Why do you think so? Even though Kitano had done it on purpose before, he still felt quite innocent when he heard Yuan Ran's words. It's been 5 years since what happened. Even if I'm sorry for you, I should pay it back. He lowered his eyes and glanced at his left hand, which was a wound that would never heal in his lifetime. Yuan Ran's eagerness to clear up the relationship irritated Kitano. How can it be so easy to pay off? How important do you think you are, just to sleep for one night and pretend that nothing happened? B suddenly grabbed her wrist, turned around and pressed her against the table. Yuan Ran's waist hit the hard edge of the table and it hurt. But Kitano didn't seem to notice. He was stimulated by Yuan Ran's words and found it difficult to control his emotions. How cruel are you, a woman? At that moment, Yuan Ran seemed to see care and a touch of pain in his eyes. She reminded herself to be awake many times, but every time she ate, her hopes were ruthlessly shattered by Kitano. She became timid and did not dare to try easily. Yuan Ran's face was tense, bearing B's anger. The two of them just stared at each other, neither of them willing to lower their heads. This position was uncomfortable. Yuan Ran couldn't push Beiya away even if she wanted to move. She had a headache. Beiya, what do you want? Want you? This man revealed his desire without hesitation, and his calloused fingers caressed her cheek, from top to bottom. I don't know why, but she was pushed onto the sofa by her. The sofa in the small home is very narrow and can only accommodate one person. The postures of the two people are almost overlapping, so intimate contact should be something that can only be done between lovers. Yuan Ran felt panicked. The more she resisted, the closer B wanted to get to her. But now Kitano has never kissed her, not even once. She began to obey because she wanted to verify something. Yuan Ran remembered a scene a long time ago. At that time, Kitano played a lot of games on campus. He played truth or dare with his brothers and lost. Others asked him to kiss anyone other than his girlfriend, but he did not hesitate. Choose to drink 10 glasses of wine as punishment. At that time, Kitano hugged her domineeringly and said, I will only kiss the woman I love most in this life. Yuan Ran rarely takes the initiative to fight for something, but when she meets Beiya, she hopes for something extravagantly again and again. Yuan Ran tried to cooperate with his movements and raised her head to kiss Beiya's cheek, but he turned his head to avoid it. Yuan Ran didn't believe it, and once again gained the courage to try to kiss her, but Kitano still didn't kiss her. She understood and avoided it on purpose. Yuan Ran still hugged him, with no hope left in her heart. She should accept her fate and recognize the reality. The reason why Kitano did this to her was not because he still liked her in his heart, but to prove that he would definitely get what Kitano wanted. Yuan Ran's hand gradually slid down from his neck until it was pressed against his back, exerting strong force. Kitano seemed to be unable to feel the pain and still refused to let go. Yuan Ran, tell me, do you regret what you did to me? Not regret. Yuan Ran closed her eyes and a tear flowed from the corner of her eyes. It turns out that you can love without emotion. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 853. Chapter 853, Force her to take birth control pills. When Yuan Ran woke up, she found herself lying in his arms, as close as a close lover. But they are not even friends. Yuan Ran wanted to get up from his arms, and Beiya also woke up. The two of them looked at each other. Yuan Ran got up from his arms with a calm expression and put on her clothes. They didn't say a word after they got up. After Yuan Ran washed up, B followed her to do those things. The two of them got along like a couple. Beiya deliberately didn't speak, and Yuan Ran ignored him completely. She heard the sound of B's stomach drumming, and remembered B's words last night that he had not eaten at all. But she was determined, took out jam from the refrigerator, paired it with toast and milk, and had a simple breakfast. There were extra things, but she didn't hand them to Kitano, nor did she say a word of greeting to him. She really regarded him as nothing. After a while, the doorbell rang at the door. Yuan Ran saw through the peephole that the man standing outside was Chu Sui. She thought to herself, this is good, Chu Sui is probably here to pick someone up. Yuan Ran opened the door generously and saw Chu Sui holding a small bag in his hand and standing respectfully at the door. Good morning, Miss Yu. Chu Sui greeted her host first, then turned to look at B. This house is small, and the dining table is in the hall, so Chu Sui can see B at a glance. B walked over and took the bag from Chu Sui's hand, and then closed the door with a bang. Yuan Ran stared at the pocket in his hand with an unpredictable expression. She guessed that it might be the breakfast that Chu Sui brought to B. But what Yuan Ran couldn't figure out even more was why B didn't follow Chu Sui and drove Chu Sui away. I saw Kitano put the bag in front of her and took out a pill from it. Yuan Ran looked at all this and had a bad feeling in his heart. Sure enough, the next moment Kitano handed her the unopened pill and said, "Take it." "What is this?" Yuan Ran asked indifferently, already having 9 guesses in his mind. Kitano told her honestly, "Contraceptive pills." Yuan Ran turned away his eyes and said, "I don't need it." B frowned, seeming dissatisfied with her retort. He said indifferently, "I don't want to leave unnecessary trouble." Yuan Ran's expression was 3 points colder than his. "Don't worry, I don't want to either." "So, take it." Kitano pushed the medicine forward again. Yuan Ran stared at the medicine closely, and from the corner of his eye, he could still see the serious expression on Bei's face, without any hesitation. She squeezed her hands tightly, finally took the birth control pill, took out the water, and swallowed it in one gulp. "Are you satisfied now?" There was a hint of coldness in Yuan Ran's eyes. Bei saw that she had indeed taken the medicine and nodded. Yuan Ran sneered, pointed in the direction of the door and let him go. "Get out." Bei gathered his clothes and didn't protest. He turned around and walked away simply. When he was about to close the door, Yuan Ran suddenly picked up the bag next to him and threw it at Bei's feet. "Take your things with you." Bei silently picked up the things and closed the door for her. The door was closed tightly, and Yuan Ran seemed to have lost all her strength and ran into the toilet to vomit. After a while, her eyes and face turned red. She raised her head and saw herself looking embarrassed in the mirror, and burst into tears from laughter. Mr. Bei is not that hateful. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 854. Chapter 854 Tempting Brother Chen. Ye Wei and Yezikin were really inspired after their honeymoon trip, so they immediately composed a song with a cheerful melody and gave it to the music company. The people at the music company were very strict with her, but they were still satisfied knowing that she was still able to produce music of this level even though she was not a professional. Yezi can record her own songs, but she is not famous yet, and even if she releases a record, it may be difficult to sell it. In this case, the first thing to do is to make her famous. Ye Wei started to gain popularity after posting links to his works on Weibo, and then posted the title of his music company. Weibo fans increased very quickly. But this is not enough. Ye Wei began to pay attention to various music competitions. It happened that someone from the music company reminded her of a nationwide program to select new generations. Ye Wei became interested, rushed to pay attention to the relevant content, and then decisively signed up. Since she has decided to develop on this road, she must take it seriously and go on bravely. Ye is the only one with talent and appearance. He stood out when he was selected from a small place in reality, and his reputation gradually grew in that time. One day Tian Gongqinli called her, and her first sentence was full of excitement, "You are so awesome. Do you know, There are people in our dormitory who are listening to your songs and even saved them as ringtones. Finally, Gonkinli added, of course I will not be outdone and set the ringtone on my phone to your recording. It sounds great. It is a happy thing to be recognized by others. Ye Wei felt a sense of accomplishment and went to look for Yezikin with his latest recorded sound, but found that he was not in the room. The only person who found him was in the study at the end of the night. He was sitting there upright, reviewing documents. Ye Wei's foot that was about to take a step forward was retracted, and he held his hand on the door, feeling that he could not take that step forward. Yezikin has a lot to do, so letting him listen to music is a waste of time. Suddenly I felt a little selfish. Yezikin takes all the responsibilities on her body, allowing her to pursue her dreams easily. But let me ask, how can she watch Yezikin working tirelessly alone? Ye Wei heard Yezikin's voice while standing at the door in trance. He asked, why don't you come in? Ye Wei pursed his lips, put a smile on his face and walked in. He put on a relaxed look and patted his shoulders, saying something casually. Is my brother very busy recently? A little bit. Yezikin pinched the bridge of his nose and told her, I have to go on a business trip tomorrow. I have to be good at home for 2 days, you know. Are you going on a business trip again? He obviously just went out 3 days ago. Yezikin nodded, it seemed that this was a done deal. Brother, can I help you? Yezikin paused for a moment, then quickly returned to normal, and asked, has the music been recorded? Ye Wei nodded hurriedly, okay, I've done all my things, and I can still do other things. She expressed in various explicit and implicit ways that she still had extra time to do other things. But Yezikin had already understood her thoughts and directly denied it. You have to be single-minded in your work. You are just free now. When you win the finals, you will be in a lot of trouble. That's in the future, I just want to help you now. Unnecessary. Seeing that Yezikin was hardening up, Ye Wei suddenly sat on his lap, hooked his hands around his neck, and breathed like a blue, you will need me. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 855. Chapter 855. The First Lady. Xiao Li, did you do it on purpose? Aren't you tempted? She deliberately bit Yezikin's ear. Not tempted? How can soft incense be pregnant, or the person you like? Not only is it tempting, but it's also about taking action, okay? Yezikin picked her up easily, patted her little crotch, and said with gritted teeth, you have become more capable. I did it on purpose. A man's life can't just be work. How about I help you relax? Ye Wei did not deny that he was deliberately seducing, and even leaned over to kiss his lips. This time it was like thunder from the sky stirring up fire on the earth, and the passion that was ignited could never be extinguished. Early morning on the second day. When Yezikin woke up, he found that there was no one beside the bed, but the breakfast and milk on the bedside table clearly indicated that Yezikin had just left not long ago. Yezikin didn't ask her to see her off at the airport, because she often traveled on business, so this was as normal as going out and taking a car. Ye Wei ate breakfast to fill his stomach, and instead of going to his own sound engineer to record songs, he went to Yezikin's company. Secretary Zhao did not go on the business trip because he wanted to stay in the company to suppress it. When Ye Wei went to the company, Secretary Zhao was surprised, but he still treated her well and did not dare to neglect the serious boss lady. Secretary Zhao gave a brief report on Yezikin's itinerary, and also told Ye Wei everything about today's work situation. Secretary Zhao thought Ye Wei came to inspect the company's office on a whim, but he didn't expect that after he finished his report, Ye Wei sat down on Yezikin's office chair and started processing documents. Secretary Zhao was confused about this. It's not that he's afraid of Ye Wei causing trouble, because Secretary Zhao knows that his boss's wife's ability in this regard is no worse than his secretary. He just doesn't understand. Didn't the boss say that the boss's wife will develop into a big star in the music industry in the future? Why did he come to work in the company as soon as the boss left? Madam, what are you doing? Ye Wei looked up at him and chuckled, don't you see? I'm here to work. But didn't Chen Zhong say that you won't deal with these things in the future? Oh, that's nonsense. I'm all sitting here, how can he still lie? After hearing this, Secretary Zhao wiped the non-existent sweat on his forehead and said, okay, listen to madam. How dare he refute Ye Wei's words? Secretary Zhao turned around and told Yezikin about this. After seeing the message, Yezikin only replied with two short words, I know. Yezikin, who was far away from home, had a headache when he saw what Secretary Zhao reported. He felt that Ye Wei would take action yesterday, but he didn't expect it to be so fast. He is outside now and can't control Ye Wei at all. Before Yezikin finished his business trip, Secretary Zhao told him good news. A planning proposal that was not passed before was successfully passed after the only late-night revision. Ye Wei completed another big business in just one day. Secretary Zhao's admiration for Ye Yuyi instantly rose 10 degrees. Madam, you are so awesome. Really, more powerful than your boss. Secretary Zhao didn't dare to compare with these words, so he could only muddle through with a hey. Ye Wei smiled and shook his head. After a while, he heard that Madame Ye was coming. Mrs. Ye came to see her. Have you been dealing with the company's affairs these past 2 days? What's not allowed? I don't care about the company's affairs. I just want to ask, when are you planning to hold a wedding with Chen Er? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 856. Chapter 856, Give birth to a child as soon as possible. Ye Wei pinched her ears. She suspected that she heard wrongly. Mrs. Ye came to the company specifically to see her just to ask when she and Yezikin would get married. I. She suddenly didn't know how to answer Madame Ye's question. Mrs. Ye, on the other hand, showed a very decisive look, it's yours and mine. Now that we have obtained the certificate, we should seize the time to hold the wedding. No, I want to ask, why? It's no wonder that she and Madame Ye only communicated in this way, because neither she nor Madame Ye could completely let go of their grudges about the past. But now Mrs. Ye came to ask her about the wedding, and she was not prepared at all. Mrs. Ye coughed twice and stood there proudly like a lady, after all, my son has a good reputation. You have already received the certificate, but you still held the wedding early. We have our own arrangements. I don't care what your arrangements are, the wedding will be held within 3 months. What? I said this quite nicely just now, but now I used a commanding tone. Facing Madame Ye like this, how could she say Mom? Mrs. Ye, we are adults, we know what to do and what not to do, and whether to hold a wedding is not a way to test feelings. As long as we are truly together, the wedding is not important. Nonsense. My son is the president of Yes Group. No matter what he does, he must be above board. In short, I don't care whether you care or not, this wedding must be held. Ye Wei rubbed his forehead, feeling that he could not have a normal conversation with Mrs. Ye. After all, I am already married to Yezikin, so I can't criticize others like I am doing the right thing, but what Mrs. Ye said always makes people unable to help but refute. Maybe it's because they don't share the same aura. Mrs. Ye, if you have any special arrangements, you can discuss it with Brother Chen. If he agrees, I won't have any objections. You know he's listening to you. There's really nothing we can talk about today. So what do you want me to do? Discuss with Chen Er, Find a good day to hold the wedding, and then have a baby as soon as possible. MRS's voice seemed to be a little softer after talking about it. Ye Wei seems to have grasped something important. Having a wedding or having a baby? Madam, are you talking about having a baby? Do you want us to have a baby? Now that you're married, isn't it normal to have children? There's nothing to make a fuss about. It is indeed normal to have children after getting married. She was surprised to hear this from MRS yet. Well, I still want to tell you that we have no plans to have children yet. She is only 23 years old now. If she gets pregnant and gives birth to a child, she will not be able to do anything. Furthermore, Ye Wei specifically applied, I still have my own job. It's just that MRS Ye felt unhappy after hearing what she said and asked her directly, what kind of job do you need? Isn't it possible that a company as big as Chenner can't support you? Ye Wei shook his head, this is different. I don't need to be a rice bug being raised by others. If possible, she hopes to help Yezikin share his troubles. But MRS Ye was not willing to listen to her reasons and directly raised her hand to make a stop gesture. MRS Ye said firmly, I don't care what you think, as long as you give birth to the child, you can do whatever else you want. I will raise the child. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 857. Chapter 857, with a lovely wife at home, everything is ready. Ye Wei sat on Yezikin's office chair and sighed. It's not like a child can come out of the belly immediately after birth. Madam, this is the review list just sent by the Human Resources Department. Look. When Secretary Zhao handed over the list, Ye Wei glanced at it and tried to let him put it down, but something suddenly occurred to him. Wait a minute, show me. Give. After Secretary Zhao handed over the list, Ye Wei read it carefully, and finally pointed at the name Len Yangzi and asked, do you have any information about this person? I want to see it. Secretary Zhao searched for it at that time and later sent an electronic document, yes. When Ye Wei opened the file and saw the photo on it, he understood clearly. This Len Yangzi is the girl I met in night before. It has been several years since then, and she has not paid much attention to Len Yangzi's matter. Unexpectedly, her name has been submitted to the personnel department for review. It seems that she has real ability. What has Len Yangzi done in just a few years? Madam, this Len Yangzi is a new intern, is there anything wrong with her? It's nothing, I just saw that her name is the same as someone I once knew. Ye Wei did not give any special instructions. After closing the file, he put the list back and casually said, well done, let's take a good look at the newcomers in this period. Okay. Although Ye Wei didn't deliberately warn him, Secretary Zhao seemed to understand something from it. When submitting the intern evaluation form to the Human Resources Department, Secretary Zhao paid more attention to Len Yangzi. Len Yangzi's evaluation over there was good, saying that she was hard-working and down-to-earth. Secretary Zhao thought that the person who was looked at twice by the CEO's wife was indeed a good person. Before Yezikin came back from his business trip, Ye Wei had already sneaked home and cooked a sumptuous dinner for him to wash away the dust. Yezikin came back and saw the table full of food and the smiling woman standing at the table. He didn't want to say anything for a moment. The words that I had prepared in my heart to educate her were immediately dismissed when I saw her at home. When you return home from physical and mental exhaustion and see a gentle and beautiful woman waiting there cooking a meal for you, you feel so happy, what else can you say? Little Belle, you are really. He, I'm getting smarter and smarter, sorry. Ye Wei deliberately did not mention work, and she also tried not to let Yezikin mention it. Yezikin can't do anything to her. During the meal, Ye Wei asked him casually, Brother Chen, do you like children? Yezikin paused and asked, why do you suddenly ask this question? I just wanted to ask. He didn't know how to give a more appropriate answer, and he thought that Ye Wei loved children very much. In order to coax his beloved wife, he had to say, "I quite like it." Ye Wei heard Yezikin's answer and took a bite of rice. "Well, when does Brother Chen want to raise a child?" "What, you want to give me a baby?" Ye Wei glanced at him. If it wasn't me, could there be someone else? Tapping his fingers on the table, Yezikin emphasized, "Don't misinterpret my meaning. Just, your mother came to me today and said she hoped we would have a wedding as soon as possible and have a baby." After briefly explaining the reason, Ye Wei asked tentatively, "Otherwise, let nature take its course." "No." End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 858. Chapter 858, Husband and wife sleep in separate rooms. "Why, don't you like me giving you a baby?" "Yes, only hard." Kik was rejected and I felt aggrieved. "You are still young." Yezikin has been saying this for many years. Before we fell in love, we said she was still young. After we fell in love, we said she had not grown up. Now that she has graduated and got married, she has become a child instead of being an old child. You are only 23 years old now, don't think about what you have and what you don't have. Brother Chen, do you dislike children? Nothing. Ye Wei shook his head helplessly, feeling it was a pity. "Oh, it's me who is in pain when giving birth, why are you unwilling?" The person opposite gave her a cold look and made a unilateral decision that could not be rejected. "I won't do it if I say no." Seeing how domineering and stubborn he was, Ye Wei didn't argue with him. He picked up the empty bowls and chopsticks, smiled at him, and said very innocently, "Then let's sleep in separate rooms. This will ensure that no baby will be born." Of Qiaolian. I feel like I am gritting my teeth again. Ye Wei blinked innocently. She felt that she was getting more and more powerful now, and she dared to confront Yezikin openly. Actually, she is not in a hurry about giving birth. But seeing Yezikin's reaction, I felt very happy. Of course, sleeping in separate rooms is impossible, impossible. And the only time I got up from bed the next night was that my back was sore, miserable, extremely miserable. Yezikin, you did it on purpose. Deliberately exhausted her energy and prevented her from going to work. But Ye Wei became more and more frustrated, so he quickly packed himself up and went to work. But after she went there, she discovered that the password for Yezikin's office had been changed, and no matter how she entered it, it was wrong. "Yezikin, you are cruel." Ye Wei stamped his foot. Secretary Zhao, who was hiding in the dark, was trembling, thinking silently, "It's none of my business, it's none of my business, I just obey orders." But Ye Wei is not that easy to fool. Since she is not allowed to deal with big things, she will get involved in other tasks. Ye Wei was walking towards the department and accidentally bumped into someone. Snap dash. Sorry. Hearing the sound of something falling to the ground, Ye Wei hurriedly bent down to pick it up and touched the man's arm. Ye Wei looked up and felt that this person looked familiar. "Ah, I remembered, isn't this Len Yangzi?" At this time, Len Yangzi, who was standing in front of her, was no longer the childish girl she once was. She dyed her hair, put on mature style clothes, learned how to put on makeup, and looked like a mature woman who had entered society. Len Yangzi obviously also recognized her. "Miss Jiao." Ye Wei nodded and greeted her informally, "Long time no see." "Miss Jiao, no, it's Mrs. Ye." Len Yangzi noticed the ring on her hand and immediately changed her tune. "I didn't expect you to work here. Are you still used to it? It's a very nice place and the benefits for employees are also good. You are honest, just say it directly, the salary is high. By the way, where is your grandma?" "Grandma is fine, thank you, Mrs. Ye, for your concern." "It's okay, since you work so hard, work hard and try to stay through the internship period. Yeah, I will. Len Yangzi seemed to be convinced and full of motivation. Ye Wei waved to him and left. Len Yangzi looked down at her phone and took a deep breath when she saw some notes. That said, Amo Ruo Shuang. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 859. Chapter 859, Little Bell, give up, I won't see you. Little Bell, give up, I won't see you. I gritted his teeth in anger. Yezikin, don't think I will give up so easily. Those who don't know think that there is some serious quarrel between the couple, but this is not the case. Yezikin was determined not to let Wei go to work. If she lost her temper and went home to play, it would be in line with Yezikin's wishes. So Wei did not give up her purpose. She went to other departments to find things to do. As a result, when those people saw her, they instantly rested and became more energetic. Wei expressed his intention to help to the department head, but the result was that those people were panicked. Wei touched his nose and felt helpless. She was angry with Yezikin and wandered around the company for a whole day and refused to leave. Until after get off work, I went out to find an open space, and Wei called Yezikin again to drop the threat. Yezikin, if you don't agree with me coming, I will go to work elsewhere. Yezikin took the phone and did not reply directly to her words. Instead, he told Secretary Zhao next to him, Secretary Zhao, contact the Human Resources Department of all companies in S City immediately. If anyone dares to let my wife go to work, it will be with Yezikin against. He just said it deliberately so that Ye only could hear it. Yezikin. You are so cruel. I stamped his feet in anger. Hang up the phone. Wei still didn't compromise. She completely understood Yezikin's intentions, but she just couldn't see Yezikin fighting alone. She studied hard and chose the same major as him not only for revenge, but also because of him. She knew early on that the responsibility Yezikin would bear would determine his future life, so she thought about working hard at that time so that she could help him when she had the ability. The time has come. Yezikin clearly needs her. But he endured all the hardships to fulfill her. It is one thing to understand, but another to feel distressed. She really wanted to ask Yezikin, if I were to take over all the responsibilities and let you play professional competitions, would you agree? Yezikin will definitely refuse without hesitation. There is no doubt about this result. But she didn't dare to ask because she couldn't bear to part with it. She didn't want to mention the game competition in front of Yezikin, because she knew it was something he really liked but couldn't get, and she didn't want to poke his wounds. But she has to find a way to make Yezikin figure it out. As long as she is given a chance, she will make Yezikin believe that she can help him and accomplish the things she likes at the same time. But the premise is that she has to let Yezikin give her this chance. The soft ones are no good, and the hard ones are no match, so, outtweet them. The only person who picked up the phone at night and wanted to contact him first was Gongkin Li, but then he thought about Gongkin Li's miserable child who was still training at the police academy, so he ruled it out first. Thinking about Xiaoziun again, it's no good. It's too far and the location is inappropriate. After much deliberation, I dialed Yuan Ran's number. At first I didn't think of Yuan Ran because I knew that Yuan Ran liked to be quiet and didn't really want to disturb her. But there is nothing we can do now, so I have to interrupt. Answer the phone. I waited for a long time, but it didn't work. I only called 2 or 3 times that night, but still couldn't get through. Wei called the Yu family and learned through the housekeeper that Yuan Ran had not returned to the Yu family, so he had returned to his home. Calculating that it was already time to get off work, Ye Wei took a taxi there and wanted to squat at the door to beg for shelter. Ye Wei walked to Yuan Ran's door and found a pair of men's shoes on the shoe rack outside the door. Chi 11, my silly daughter, what should I do if I break JQ, face covering? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 860. Chapter 860. The pair of men's shoes at the door. Who can tell her why Yuan Ran, who is so clean and self-sufficient, has men's shoes at home? No way, I came at the wrong time. Ye Wei stared at the door, wondering whether he should knock at this moment. The security measures in the community are very good, and there are surveillance cameras at the door, so Yuan Ran's shoe cabinet is placed outside. Could someone have put it wrong? Although the possibility is almost zero, the only thing that Ye is more unwilling to believe is that Yuan Ran is divorced. According to Yuan Ran's personality, even if she is single, it is impossible to bring a man into her nest in a short period of time. This is definitely not in line with Yuan Ran's character. The most important thing is that Yuan Ran doesn't answer the phone now, and now he sees men's shoes at the door, which makes Ye Wei's heart suddenly lift. Worried that something would happen to Yuan Ran, Ye Wei no longer hesitated and started ringing the doorbell. Yuan Ran was working in her room when she heard the doorbell ringing. At first she thought she was hallucinating, but the doorbell kept ringing and she realized something was wrong. Yuan Ran quickly pushed the man who was working him, "Get up quickly." B didn't say anything, but he was reluctant to leave. "Ye," someone knocked on the door. "You heard wrong." Kitano dismissed her words without hesitation. Yuan Ran was already awake and her face darkened. "I said, things between us cannot affect my normal life." Hearing Yuan Ran's firm tone, B finally stopped and let her go. Yuan Ran quickly grabbed a skirt and put it on, and combed her hair with her fingers. When leaving the bedroom, Yuan Ran had already heard the sound at the door. Seeing Ye Wei through the cat's eye, she was slightly startled and did not dare to open the door. "Xiao Li, wait a moment." Yuan Ran quickly returned to the bedroom and saw Kitano sitting naked in her room and making a fuss. "Don't come out, don't let Xiao Yan find out." After warning Ye, Yuan Ran locked the door and then opened the door. Ye only saw Yuan Ran, who was intact, and he breathed a sigh of relief. "I didn't even answer your call. It took me so long to knock on the door. Sorry, I was taking a shower just now." Ye Wei shook his head and explained, "It's okay, I'm just worried about you." Yuan Ran invited her to come in and sit down. When Ye Wei was about to take off his shoes, he saw the pair of men's shoes again. He pointed at them curiously and asked, "An Ran, why do you have men's shoes here?" Yuan Ran, who had always been calm, actually had a hint of embarrassment on his face. But I didn't see it at that time. Yuan Ran explained, "It was my secretary who said that it is not safe for a person to live at home. It is safe to put a pair of men's shoes." "Wei, what is this strange reason? Isn't your community very safe?" It was Yuan Ran who told her how complete the security measures in this community were. But Yuan Ran said to her so calmly, "Now, the secretary said it." Okay, although this reason is strange, it sounds reasonable. And it doesn't look like Yuan Ran is lying. Yuan Ran invited her in again, and only then did Ye Wei remember his purpose. "An Ran, I'm homeless, can you take me in for one night?" "Ah." Yuan Ran, who has always been calm, failed for the second time because of Ye Wei. If it were the past, she would definitely say yes without hesitation, and then ask, "What's going on?" But now. Yuan Ran glanced at his bedroom. End of this chapter.